Winston-Salem has been making some national news lately, and just a few weeks after being named the 13th best city in the country to start a business, Winston-Salem has also climbed 15 places in U.S. News rankings of best places to live in the country. It's worth mentioning Greensboro moved up 17 places this year as well, but Winston-Salem moved up 15 spaces to the number 41 place in the United States to live. And while U.S. News, they have a complex rating system that they used in all these categories, what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to talk about those same categories. I'm going to use my experience of relocating here from the suburbs of Chicago a few years ago and combine that with helping and talking to literally hundreds of other people do the same thing. I'm going to put all those things into the old Valentino 5000 supercomputer, and we're going to talk about them all. Let's get right into it. I'm Jeff Valentino. I love helping people buy and sell real estate. If that's you, my contact information is below. So the first category, and the one that U.S. News puts the most weight in their rankings, was overall quality of life. And like I said, they have a complex system that they use to rank all these things, but I want to tell you, this is where Winston-Salem got its second highest score. And honestly, I think it probably should have been its best score, because this was a huge surprise to me that I didn't really consider when I first moved here. I moved here for a lot of other reasons. Quality of life sure was one, but this was better for me than I had hoped for. Of course, some of that's going to be subjective, but when you take into account there's been no huge population boom to put strain on infrastructure like so many other cities in North Carolina, the people here still have maintained that kind of southern charm and the friendliness that people really love about North Carolina. And I've talked about some of these other things, how that's going away in other videos that I've made, especially the one about people leaving Raleigh-Durham to move back to Winston-Salem and Greensboro. But I do think Winston-Salem should have done better in this ranking, but hey, that's me. When you look at quality of life, I look at it as a few different things, right? Is the overall feel of the city and the people that are here, the access to amenities and different things to do, whether that be family friendly or going out to outdoor activities by yourself, whatever the case may be. When you take all those things into consideration, Winston-Salem, and not only Winston-Salem, but areas just outside of Winston-Salem, still in the Triad within about a 30 to 40 minute drive, has an amazing amount of things to do. When you combine that with a relative lack of traffic, good schools, a little bit slower pace of life, people being super friendly, and just the general feel of the city with its art, with its looking towards the future and innovation and a little bit of a tech industry that's growing here, I really do think that Winston-Salem could have done a little bit better, should have done a little bit better in this ranking, but quality of life was Winston-Salem's second highest score. Next part in the rankings was value, and this is where I'm going to have a little bit of a different opinion than U.S. News. Winston-Salem, this is the place where they score the highest, and what they did is they combined two main things. About 50% came from housing, and about 50% came from overall affordability. And housing, I think, is really kind of where Winston-Salem has suffered, and I think that's probably a little bit behind and not 100% reflected in these rankings. Of course, we've seen prices go up in Winston-Salem. We've seen them go up across the country, especially in North Carolina. Housing hasn't really exploded here like it did, but we have seen prices go up 20 or 30% in the last 3 to 4 years. And while wages have gone up since then as well, they have not kept up with the pace of housing. That includes rents. Rents in Winston-Salem have gone up about 20 to 25% just in the last 2 years. And with wages not increasing at that same amount, that has to put some squeeze on affordability. And maybe when they factored this in with everything else going on around the country, they still came up with that number. But I have seen an impact on affordability from, first-time home buyers all the way up to move-up buyers and renters as well, just simply because wages here have not kept up with that increase. Of course, there are some creative ways that we can get around it. And if you're interested in that, of course, reach out. I'd love to talk to you about that. But the bottom line is the increase in housing costs have affected affordability in Winston-Salem. So it's good, but it's not as good as it once was. I mean, I wish I could have bought 10 more houses here in 2019, but again, we're here now and we're making the best of it. Still much more affordable than other parts of the country, and still has a lower median price than the rest of the United States. So I kind of see where they got it from, but don't kid yourself, it has been impacted by the large increase in housing costs over the last couple of years. Now, overall affordability, the other factor of that, I think Winston-Salem does really well here. Our utilities are a little bit less than average. Gas tends to be less than the average. Insurance, it tends to be less than the average. It's very tax friendly, business friendly, and all those things like that. So when you factor all those in, sure, Winston-Salem still does score highly on the affordability scale. But again, housing has made that a little bit tougher than it once was. This next one, desirability, is where Winston-Salem got its lowest score. I'm interested. Can you comment below and tell me why you think that might have happened? Why did Winston-Salem score so low on the desirability factor? 65% of this ranking came from US News. They did a survey of thousands of people and said, hey, where would you like to live on these cities? Winston-Salem was in that list, and that's kind of how they got the bulk of that score. I've always said I thought Winston-Salem kind of flies under the radar a little bit. I still do think that. I think that may have impacted them on this score, but I would love to know what you think, because when I think of desirability, I look at, I'm a parent, so I look at, schools, things to do, activities, weather, all those different things, and then include that with, city amenities, safety, potential for growth, all those different things. When I look at all those things and really trying to be objective here, I see Winston-Salem as pretty desirable. Now, it didn't do as good as some of those other, cities because, frankly, they're larger cities. And there's going to be more amenities in Raleigh than there is in Winston-Salem. I mean, it just kind of stands to reason. And I do think the job market may have impacted that, desirability. While it's known for, city of arts and innovation, there are some tech jobs and stuff coming here. If Winston-Salem could get and keep one or two really big employers, like a Google or something like that here to really bring some more high-paying white-collar jobs, I think that would increase its desirability overall. But again, this is where Winston-Salem did get its lowest score. And then next is going to be the job market in Winston-Salem. It got a decent score there, kind of somewhere in the middle. As I said before, the average salary has increased here from about, the mid 40s to the upper 50s, low 60s as far as the average income. It's also why I like making the coming soon videos to show different jobs and businesses that are coming to the Triad, because I think this is an area where it's improving. Not as fast as some people would like, but I do think that the average salary piece is a piece that is growing. The other 50% of that score was the average unemployment, and this has been right along with the state of North Carolina as a whole. So decent scores there. Many places still have more openings than they do people looking for jobs. So it's interesting to see what the unemployment figures are going to do over the next year or so, especially if we move into that big R word that people have been talking about. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to not only the unemployment numbers, but the overall job and average wage in Winston-Salem as well. I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think about Winston-Salem and its ranking? It did come in number 41. It made a huge jump this last year, 15 spaces to get to number 41. It's in the company of a lot of other bigger, well-known cities, so it's kind of neat to see Winston-Salem make some of these moves. It's almost like the little city that could. For a city of its size, I think it has so much to offer. The move has been great for me. If you'd like to talk more about moving to Winston-Salem or you have real estate questions, I'd love to be a resource for you. You can reach out to me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.